Well, my views on sex would be the same because of natural law.
So you think that people shouldn't be able to rape people then? Or you think that people should be able to rape people without sex being sacred?
Rape is one thing, but I'm just talking about in general about the roles of men and women in society. That would be more or less the same because natural law dictates it.
Gotcha. Okay, well, going back to the very, very original thing, I think that I've done an okay job at refuting all of the studies or evidence that you gave me about the genetic differences that explaining the variation in IQ between races. Do you disagree with that? Was there something that you wanted to talk about more in regards to any of those original studies or things you gave me to look up? Or
well, the only thing is, I give you a ton of evidence and a ton of studies that I think support it, and then you just come back to this argument of this nihilistic argument about it being, oh, it's too complex for us to really know and stuff like that. So I don't really know how anyone can convince you of this.
So
I don't think it's possible to.
Sure. So I'm disappointed that you said this because earlier you talked to me about intellectual integrity. Now it seems like you're abandoning that. You didn't present me with a ton of evidence. You presented me with 3 different things to look at. You presented me the idea that people immigrate with high IQs and then regress to IQs of their native countries. I couldn't find any evidence of this, and you tell me now that the only way I can find this is by Googling IQ numbers and doing it myself. The second thing you presented was the Minnesota adoption study, which you initially misrepresented quite large, and the researchers themselves dramatically disagree with your conclusions, and they've even responded in detail to the person that you cite that disagreed with their conclusions. And then 3, you brought up the Mongolians, who, from my reading, apparently are a culture that highly value education, and you're pointing to them as somebody that believes that IQ is this intrinsic thing. So these are the 3 pieces of evidence you gave me that you claim are a mountain of evidence, and none of them seem to hold up to any scrutiny. Do you disagree with any of these assertions?
Well, on point number 2, you're making it seem like the people who physically conducted the research are the end-all, be-all of its interpretation, which I don't really understand because most of the time people who do the research are too involved to draw accurate conclusions.
Okay, I don't agree with that, but okay.
Well, in certain things, not like if it's something that's like not political or not like emotional or whatever, and they can step outside of the forest and see the trees, then it's not going to impact it. But like there are certain areas where that can happen.
Sure. So when you say certain areas, you've weasel worded your way out of all responsibility for that statement. But okay.
Well, no, but what I mean is, like, I could say, like, oh, well, James Watson, the man who invented the double helix DNA structure, he's the best scientist of all time, and he supports racialism and my views. So I'm correct, but you're basically just saying that because these 2 authors of this study refuted what the racialists said, and not even particularly well, in my opinion, that it's somehow that's the end-all be-all of that study not being some evidence.
The first argument you gave was a fallacious argument, appeal to authority, right? Just because somebody discovers DNA doesn't make them an authority on all human behavior. That's not true. I would never claim that. That's absolutely fallacious. And secondly, you say that the researchers were inconvincing in providing environmental explanations for the differences between IQ. Do you disagree with the fact that they said in the study that a large majority of black children were adopted at later ages, which could have had dramatic impacts? Or do you disagree with the assertion that a prenatal environment can have a very large impact on the IQ of a child, and that many of the black women in the study could have been subjected to bad prenatal environments due to the existence of segregation? Do you disagree with these assertions, or what exactly was unsatisfying about their explanations?
Well, what's really unsatisfying, it's not even that this particular study is some great study about DNA or whatever.
Then why would you give me this particular study to look at to prove your claims?
Well, it's just one of the most well-known, but there's tons of them like this. It's been replicated so many times.
Okay, then why not give me another study that maybe is more recent, that takes into account the fact that maybe a study that doesn't draw black people that are literally living under segregation, maybe one that controls for adoption age a little bit better? Like, why not give me a different study then? Why give me one where the researchers themselves reject your conclusion? Wouldn't that make more sense if you were trying to prove give me a totality of evidence?
Researchers wouldn't reject the evidence, to be honest. Even like if it was the most concrete thing possible. I don't know if any of these government-funded researchers would come out and say, oh yeah, this is correct. So we can kind of forget about doing this diversity thing now because it's going to destroy our nation. I don't think any of them would actually come out and do anything like that, even if it was founded, right?
Okay, and I don't think any scientist would actually admit that the world is flat because they'd be laughed out, even though I know for sure that the world is flat, and I've got a ton of evidence proving that the world is flat. No real scientist is going to come out and do it because the government will kill them. So now we're both taking the same position where we can't trust any authority because we think all authority on a topic is bad. So now we have to turn to absolute laymen, to YouTubers, or people posting on internet forums to derive scientific fact. I reject this. That this is the only way that we can go about this.
Well, that would, do you think that if we were in a time where people who believe the Earth was round were killed, or societally shunned, that wouldn't have an impact on it? Like, do you think these scientists are so morally objective and they value objectivity so much that they would come out and say the truth regardless? Do you think that that's what would happen?
I mean, you do have scientists that publish pretty unpopular things, so I don't think we're murdering or killing scientists for publishing unpopular things, although there could be academic blowback for it, sure. But it just seems strange to me that, like, it's so hard to find this evidence when you say you've presented a totality of it and it's so irrefutable. It seems strange that it would be so hard to find studies that support what you're saying then.
Scientists who have said unpopular things and being shunned, James Watson and Richard Lynn, two very intelligent scientists who drew some very, what I feel were correct conclusions, and they were completely shunned just because they were deemed as racist because they disagreed with the majority. So
sure. So I guess I would invite you to present me more studies or something that I can look through, because all of the evidence that you've given me so far has failed quite dramatically when held up to scrutiny, unless I'm supposed to go through, read the data, reject the interpretation of the philosophers, or not the philosophers, of the researchers, and then reject their response to other people, and take, I guess, what you want me to divine from this study. I would be interested to see other information, but as it stands right now, I don't think you've convinced anything, or presented anything that's truly convincing the argument you set out to make. I think that's a pretty fair statement on my end.
I think the standard of evidence you're setting is so high that it would be impossible to convince you one way or the other that it was either genetic
I'm literally asking for a very educated person that agrees with your opinion, that somebody that's wrote about it and agrees.
What about Richard Lynn? Richard Lynn agrees with my opinion.
Okay, but it seems that he stands at ends with a large amount of academic opinion on this topic. Like, can you find me more than like a single person? Can you, like, if a body of literature supports something, like, you can always find like one.
Do you know how many books Richard Lynn wrote about this?
Probably not as many as many books have been written against him by a number of other academics.
No. Do you think that science is governed by majority opinion? You asked me to provide you someone who agrees with me, who wrote out intelligent